Lilah Rhodes had always dreamed of adventure beyond the crowded streets of the city. Growing up in a bustling urban neighborhood, she often gazed out at the horizon, imagining a life filled with wide-open spaces and endless possibilities. The noise of carriages and chatter faded away as she pictured herself riding a horse across sunlit fields, free from the constraints of her everyday life. When she received news of an opportunity in the frontier, she eagerly packed her bags, ready to embrace this new chapter. However, upon arriving at the dusty town surrounded by vast plains, Lilah quickly discovered that reality was much harsher than her dreams. The townsfolk eyed her with skepticism. She was slender and delicate, with hands unaccustomed to hard labor. Despite her best efforts to fit in, she struggled to perform even the simplest tasks required on a ranch. This sense of inadequacy grew as she faced rejection from those who deemed her unfit for the rugged challenges of frontier life. Feeling alone and defeated, Lilah began to wonder if she had made a terrible mistake. It was during this difficult time that she crossed paths with Hank Lawson, a neighbor whose own struggles mirrored hers. His cattle had perished under the relentless sun, leaving him in dire circumstances. In a moment of vulnerability, Lilah accepted Hank's offer for shelter and support. As they shared their stories of loss and hardship, Lilah realized that perhaps this new beginning was not about escaping her old life but finding strength in unexpected places. With Hank by her side, she could finally pursue not just survival, but also the promise of something greater. An adventure filled with love and resilience on the frontier. As Lilah settled into her new life in the frontier, she quickly realized that adapting to the rugged lifestyle was far more challenging than she had anticipated. The harsh sun beat down relentlessly, and the strong winds kicked up dust that stung her skin. Her delicate hands, accustomed to the softness of city life, struggled with the rough tools and tasks required on a ranch. Each day brought a new set of challenges, but no matter how hard she tried, it seemed like nothing she did could impress her neighbors. The townsfolk watched her attempts to fit in with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Whispers followed her wherever she went, and she often overheard comments about her being too fragile for the hard work that ranch life demanded. "She won't last long out here," they would say, which pierced her heart like arrows. Lilah felt more like an outsider every day, burdened by her inability to meet their expectations. One morning, determined to prove herself, she volunteered to help with a neighbor's cattle drive. Unfortunately, when it was time to mount a horse, she struggled to climb into the saddle. The laughter of the men around her echoed in her ears as they exchanged glances filled with doubt. She felt small and ashamed as a few of them openly declared that she was unfit for such work. Defeated, Lilah dismounted and walked away from the scene, tears burning in her eyes. Later that evening, as she sat alone under the stars, contemplating her choices and questioning if she truly belonged there, Hank found her. Seeing the sadness in her eyes stirred something deep within him, a desire to help someone who was fighting their own battle. That shared understanding would soon forge an unexpected bond between them, one that would change both their lives forever. As days turned into weeks, Lilah felt the weight of rejection settle heavily on her shoulders. The whispers of the townsfolk followed her like shadows, echoing their doubts and judgments wherever she went. "She'll never make it out here," they would murmur, their voices laced with disdain. Every time she overheard such comments, a painful knot twisted in her stomach, reminding her of how far removed she was from the life she had dreamed of. One fateful day, the community held a gathering to discuss upcoming cattle drives and ranching needs. Lilah gathered her courage and decided to attend, hoping to find her place among them. As she entered the crowded hall, she noticed several ranchers exchanging glances, their expressions unreadable. She approached a group of farmers who were deep in conversation, eager to contribute her ideas on how she could help. But as she spoke up, the laughter that erupted around her felt like a dagger to her heart. One rancher, a burly man with a thick beard, scoffed openly and said, "What could a city girl like you possibly know about ranching?" The others joined in his ridicule, their laughter ringing in her ears. Lilah's cheeks burned with humiliation, and she realized that no matter how hard she tried to fit in, the community had already made up its mind about her. Feeling isolated and rejected, Lilah slipped out of the hall unnoticed. The warmth of the sun felt cold against her skin as tears blurred her vision. It seemed that every effort was in vain, leaving her questioning if there was any hope for acceptance in this unforgiving world. Yet deep down, the flicker of determination remained. She refused to give up. Perhaps there was still a chance to prove herself, not just to the townsfolk but to herself as well. In the midst of Lilah's struggles, Hank Lawson was fighting his own battles on the arid ranch he called home. Once proud and bustling with the sounds of mooing cattle, the land now lay barren under the relentless sun. Drought had swept through the area, devastating crops and leaving Hank's ranch in shambles. With every passing day, he watched as his cattle staggered under the lack of nourishment, their numbers dwindling until only a few remained. The weight of responsibility settled heavily on his shoulders, making him feel more isolated than ever. Hank was known for his unwavering grit and determination. He had always been the one to help others in need. Yet even he found himself at a loss during this difficult season. Each morning, he rose before dawn to tirelessly search for new grazing fields or water sources, but every effort seemed fruitless. The stark realities of ranch life were starting to take their toll on him, his once bright spirit dimmed, worn down by worry and exhaustion. Despite facing hardship, Hank remained respected among the few neighbors who chose to lend a hand. He was quiet and steadfast, often working alone, thinking it was easier that way rather than relying on others who were also struggling to survive. Yet, deep down, he longed for companionship, a shared understanding of resilience that could be found only through connection. One evening, while repairing a fence on the edge of his property, Hank spotted Lilah sitting under an old oak tree nearby. He had witnessed her humiliation at the gathering and felt a surge of sympathy for her in that moment. There was something about her gentle determination that caught his attention, reminding him of his own struggles. Without considering it too deeply, he made his way over to say hello, not knowing yet how much they would come to rely on each other as they faced their challenges together. As Hank approached Lilah beneath the old oak tree, he felt an unexplainable urge to help her. He could see the sadness in her eyes, reflecting the struggles they both faced. "Would you like to come stay at my ranch?" he asked gently, hoping to offer her a place where she could feel safe and supported. Lilah looked up, surprised by his kindness. She had felt so alone for so long, and the thought of staying with someone who understood hardship was comforting. When she accepted his offer, it marked the beginning of a new chapter for both of them. Hank's modest ranch was far from luxurious, but it provided shelter from the elements and warmth in each other's company. As they settled into their routine, Lilah began to help Hank with the few tasks that remained manageable despite the drought. Each small chore, feeding what little livestock he had left or mending fences, became a shared experience that forged a bond between them. In the evenings, after long days of work, they would sit together on the porch watching the sunset. They shared stories about their pasts, Lilah's city life filled with noise and people, and Hank's memories of happier times on his thriving ranch. Laughter would sometimes fill the air as they exchanged tales of their awkward moments and dreams for the future. Through these quiet moments, they discovered solace in one another. Lilah found strength in Hank's unwavering determination, while he admired her spirit, the way she faced each day despite her insecurities. Their relationship blossomed slowly but surely, rooted in mutual respect and understanding as they navigated their shared hardships together. Little did they know that this bond would soon lead to something deeper than friendship, a connection that could withstand even the toughest trials of frontier life. As Lilah and Hank settled into their new routine, their contrasting personalities began to shine through, creating a unique dynamic that enriched their lives. Hank's grit and determination were evident in every task he undertook. Even in the face of relentless challenges brought on by the drought, he refused to back down or lose hope. He was steady and hardworking, always pushing himself to find solutions, even when the odds seemed stacked against him. His resilience was inspiring, and Lilah admired how he tackled problems head-on with unwavering resolve. In contrast, Lilah brought a fresh perspective to the ranch, drawn from her city upbringing. While she lacked the physical strength for some of the arduous ranch work, her knowledge of innovative practices began to transform their daily routines. She introduced Hank to new ideas she had learned back in the city, like using rainwater collection systems and companion planting to help crops thrive better in desperate conditions. These suggestions sparked Hank's interest and curiosity as he realized that there was value in looking beyond traditional methods. Their different approaches often led to lively discussions about how best to manage the ranch. Hank would propose a hands-on method, while Lilah would encourage him to consider alternative approaches that could simplify their work. Initially, they clashed over these ideas, but with each debate, they learned to appreciate one another's strengths. Hank found himself softening, willing to try Lilah's ideas while still holding on to his own practices. Through this blend of grit and innovation, their partnership flourished. They transformed challenges into opportunities for growth together, forging a path toward success built on mutual respect and collaboration. As they nurtured not only the ranch but also their relationship, it became clear that their differing strengths were enhancing rather than hindering their journey together. As the days passed, Lilah and Hank began to tackle the daunting task of rebuilding the ranch. While Hank focused on repairing the fences and mending what was left of his barn, Lilah started to think about how they could make the most of their limited resources. One afternoon, as they took a break under the shade of an old tree, she hesitated before sharing her thoughts. "Hank," she said, her voice steady but hopeful, "I know I may not be much help with the heavy lifting, but I've been thinking about some ideas we could try here." Hank looked at her, his brow furrowed in curiosity. "What do you have in mind?" With a spark of enthusiasm, Lilah explained her vision for using rainwater collection systems to conserve water during the dry spells. "Back in the city, we used barrels to capture rainwater for our gardens," she said. "If we set up a similar system here, it could help us water the crops more efficiently." Hank listened intently, intrigued by her approach. They spent the next few days gathering materials and constructing makeshift rain barrels to collect every drop from their roof. Although it was hard work, Lilah's excitement inspired Hank to push through the hot sun and fatigue. He admired how she brought a sense of creativity to their efforts, thinking outside the box in ways he had never considered. As they worked side by side, Hank noticed how Lilah's ideas began to take shape around the ranch. She suggested companion planting techniques that would help their limited crops thrive together instead of competing for resources. With each small success they achieved together, whether it was collecting rainwater or improving soil conditions, they felt a sense of renewal growing within them. This new direction not only brought hope for their ranch but also strengthened their bond as partners united in purpose. Both Hank and Lilah realized that together they were stronger than apart. Her city knowledge complemented his grit beautifully as they forged ahead on this journey of rebuilding their lives and futures. As Lilah and Hank continued to implement their ideas, they soon found themselves up against the harsh realities of frontier life. One evening, dark clouds rolled in and rain poured down relentlessly, turning the dry ground into muddy puddles and making their hard work feel futile. Initially, Hank felt disheartened by the sudden setback, but Lilah's unwavering optimism pushed him to focus on solutions rather than despair. "Let's use this rain to our advantage," she suggested, recalling their rainwater collection system. They quickly dashed outside together to gather the barrels, struggling through the heavy downpour but laughing at each other's attempts to stay dry. The teamwork required to move the barrels closer to the roof was challenging, yet it made them feel more united in their efforts. As the days passed, the weather remained unpredictable. Intense windstorms swept through, threatening to tear apart the repairs they had painstakingly completed. One particularly wild night, they huddled inside the barn as the wind howled outside. Rather than succumbing to fear, they found comfort in each other's company. Sharing stories about their lives and dreams for the future helped distract them from the chaos surrounding them. Through these trials, Hank admired Lilah's resilience and ingenuity. The way she continued to propose solutions even amid adversity strengthened his respect for her. Meanwhile, Lilah felt Hank's quiet strength bolster her spirit, pushing her further out of her comfort zone while showing her what true grit looked like. Finally, after weeks of battling both nature's wrath and their own exhausting labor, signs of progress began to show. The crops started to sprout thanks to their combined efforts and creative strategies. With every challenge they overcame together, fixing fences in sunburnt heat or protecting crops from frost, they became not only better partners in work but also closer friends. Their shared hardships knit a bond that grew deeper with each passing obstacle, teaching them that love could flourish even amidst struggle and uncertainty. As Lilah and Hank settled into a rhythm of hard work, they began to carve out moments of joy amid the challenges of ranch life. One sunny afternoon, after finishing a long day of planting seeds in the garden, Lilah suggested they take a break. She pulled out a couple of old harmonicas she had found in the barn and playfully handed one to Hank. "Let's see if you can keep up with me," she teased, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Hank chuckled, shaking his head but accepting the challenge. As they played together, their laughter echoed through the fields, lightening the weight of their responsibilities. The sound of their music mixed with the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze created a cheerful atmosphere that made all their hard work feel worthwhile. Another evening, after another grueling day, Lilah suggested they cook dinner together using some of the fresh vegetables they had harvested. As they prepared the meal, flour flew through the air as Hank attempted to toss some dough. He accidentally showered Lilah with it, causing them both to burst into fits of giggles. "You're supposed to be helping," she laughed while wiping her hands on her apron. In those lighter moments, amidst flower and laughter or harmonica tunes drifting through the air. Their friendship blossomed deeper beyond mere companionship. They began sharing stories from their pasts. Hank's childhood adventures as a rancher and Lilah's fun misadventures in the city. Each story unveiled layers of vulnerability and trust, further solidifying their bond. As days turned into weeks, these instances of joy became more frequent. Whether it was a playful water fight during irrigation or racing each other on horseback across the open terrain, with every shared laugh and heartfelt conversation, they discovered an undeniable connection that began to mature into something more profound, an affection fueled by their teamwork and mutual respect. Together, they planted not only seeds for crops but also seeds of friendship that slowly blossomed into love, a love that felt rich and fulfilling amidst the tough realities of frontier life. One evening, after a particularly long day of work, Lilah and Hank sat on the porch watching the sun dip below the horizon. The sky was painted in hues of orange and pink, casting a warm glow over the ranch. They had just finished discussing plans for the upcoming planting season when a comfortable silence settled between them. It was in this quiet moment that Lilah felt a flutter in her heart, a realization that had been building gradually but had now surfaced with undeniable clarity. Hank turned to her, his expression softening as he spoke. "You know, I couldn't have done any of this without you," he said, his voice sincere. "You've brought so much life back to this place." His words lingered in the air, and as she looked into his eyes, she saw not just gratitude but something deeper, a connection forged through their shared struggles and triumphs. Lilah's breath caught in her throat as she responded, "I feel the same way about you. You've shown me what true strength looks like." In that moment, they both understood that their bond had evolved from friendship into something more profound. The laughter and lightheartedness they had shared were important, but it was their ability to support each other through hardships that truly cemented their feelings. As night fell and stars began to twinkle overhead, Hank reached for Lilah's hand. The warmth of his touch sent shivers down her spine, igniting emotions she had not fully acknowledged before. "I don't want to lose this, he said softly, searching her eyes for confirmation. "Neither do I," she whispered back, feeling a rush of sincerity wash over her. In that tender exchange under the vast expanse of stars, they both knew they had crossed a threshold. Their feelings were no longer just hopes or dreams but a reality worth nurturing. From that point on, amidst the trials of ranch life and the beauty of newfound love, they would face whatever came their way together, united not only as partners in work but also as partners in life. Their hearts intertwined like vines, growing stronger with every passing day on the frontier they called home. As the seasons changed and the promise of new growth emerged, Lilah and Hank faced an unexpected challenge that threatened everything they had worked for. One fateful morning, a fierce storm rolled in, bringing with it torrential rain and strong winds that howled through the ranch like a wild beast. The weather turned ominous quickly, and as they scrambled to secure their makeshift structures, panic set in. "Lilah, help me with the barn," Hank shouted over the roar of the wind. They raced against time, trying to reinforce the roof that had begun to buckle under the pressure. In the chaos, Lilah could feel her heart racing. Not just from fear of losing their hard work, but also from the realization that this storm was testing their relationship. As they fought against the elements together, frustration bubbled to the surface. "We can't keep doing this. We're never going to get ahead if we keep facing these setbacks," Hank exclaimed, his voice tinged with exhaustion and despair as he struggled to hold up a beam. "Don't say that," Lilah replied urgently, her determination igniting a fire within her. "We've overcome so much together. We can't give up now." But as she looked into his eyes, she saw his vulnerability. The weight of responsibility was taking its toll. The storm raged on, but it was their emotional tempest that truly threatened to tear them apart. In the midst of battling nature's fury, words were exchanged that cut deeper than any raindrop. Doubts began to creep in about whether they could truly endure this life together. When the storm finally subsided, leaving behind destruction and debris, Hank stood silently among the wreckage while Lilah's heart sank at what lay before them. Moments passed in silence as both reflected on their fears and frustrations. It became clear that this challenge had not only tested their ranch but also their bond. In that moment of quiet reflection, and understanding dawned upon them both. Love is not merely found in joyful moments but also forged through trials and tribulations. They realized that their commitment to each other was stronger than any storm they could face together. As they began to clean up the mess left behind by nature's fury, they leaned on one another for support, not just as partners in work but as partners in love, ready to rebuild both their ranch and their spirits anew. In the days following the storm, Lilah and Hank worked tirelessly to restore their ranch. The devastation was significant, but their determination to rebuild was stronger. They understood that this journey would demand not just physical effort but also emotional resilience. As they cleared debris and repaired the barn, every task was infused with a quiet understanding of each other's strengths and weaknesses. One afternoon, while repairing the final sections of the damaged roof, Hank caught Lilah's eye and smiled. "You know, I wouldn't want to go through this with anyone else," he said, his voice genuine. Lilah felt warmth spread through her chest as she replied, "Neither would I. We make a great team." The simple acknowledgement reaffirmed their bond and rekindled the hope that had been momentarily overshadowed by the storm. As they worked side by side, they found solace in each other's presence. When one felt weary, the other provided encouragement. "Just a little more, Hank, we're almost there," Lilah cheered when she noticed Hank slowing down. And when Lilah struggled to lift a heavy beam, Hank was there to lend a hand without hesitation. With each challenge they overcame together, they not only repaired their home but also fortified their love. They began to envision a stable future, one where they could transform the ranch into a thriving sanctuary filled with laughter and love. Ideas flowed freely between them, and soon they were planning for new crops and animals to bring life back to the land. On a particularly starry night, as they sat together on the porch reviewing their plans, Lilah turned to Hank with heartfelt sincerity. "I believe in us," she said softly. "We'll build something beautiful here." Hank nodded, his expression fierce with purpose. "Together, we can conquer anything." Their commitment to each other was now unshakable, fortified by teamwork and mutual respect. They were ready to face whatever came next, knowing they had each other's backs through thick and thin. In that moment, it became clear that their shared experiences had not only helped them rebuild but had also laid the foundation for a profound partnership destined for lasting love and stability on the frontier they now called home. As Lilah and Hank settled into a new rhythm, they reflected on how far they had come, not just in rebuilding their ranch but in their personal growth. The journey from their initial struggles had not only fortified their connection but also reshaped their understanding of wealth. They both realized that although they faced trials, the true richness of their lives lay within their partnership. One afternoon, as they walked through the fields now brimming with crops thanks to their hard work, Hank paused to watch a pair of butterflies dancing above a flower patch. "You know," he began, looking at Lilah, "when I lost my cattle, I thought I'd lost everything." He turned to her, sincerity in his eyes. "But through this journey, I've gained something far more valuable." Lilah smiled, recognizing the depth of his words. "Exactly," she replied. "I used to think wealth was about money and possessions. But here, with you, I've discovered it's about the love we share and the life we're creating together." Their conversations often wandered into dreams for the future, how they could expand their land and what kind of home they wanted to build. They envisioned a place filled with laughter, children running barefoot through the fields, and gatherings that included neighbors they had once felt disconnected from. Through shared experiences of joy and hardship, they learned that prosperity was not measured by material goods but by the support they provided each other and the affection that blossomed amidst adversity. Their partnership became a refuge where both of them could lean and grow stronger. Staying true to their vision, they cultivated not only their land but also a life rich in love and resilience. Lilah knew that with Hank by her side, they could face whatever life threw at them and together build a legacy worth far more than gold. As dusk settled over the ranch, painting the sky in a swirl of colors much like their journey together, they held hands and smiled at one another, content in knowing that true wealth resided in the love that would continue to flourish between them for years to come.